Today I'm sharing the 10 biggest decluttering mistakes to avoid, and I'm sharing these from my personal experiences. One of these mistakes is super common and you could be making it, but we'll get to that in 1 second. Let's jump right in with number 1, which is starting to declutter in too many areas of your home all at one time. Let me tell you a little personal story about when I first started decluttering. I got so excited that I started decluttering my kids' toys. I started decluttering the kitchen. I jumped right into decluttering my clothes. And the issue here, while some people may not have a problem with this, I struggled to keep it all straight. I was pulling things out from one room, I was running to another room, pulling things out. I was just overexcited, but the problem was I pulled so many things out that it became extremely overwhelming, and it was hard to really make a lot of progress with so many areas going at the same time. So one tip to avoid this is to really focus in one spot first. And once I started getting more focused and just only decluttering my wardrobe, that's when I really started to see a ton of progress, and I was way less overwhelmed because I didn't have so many things pulled out all over my house. And to make this even more convenient for you, I've made this all into a PDF checklist. If you want to get that sent straight to your email, I will have all the information linked in the description box below. Keeping the decluttered items that are ready to leave your house for too long. There are so many problems with doing this. For one, you don't see that instant gratification of actually having the items leave your house and getting that extra space and that serenity that we all want from decluttering. The problem is if all that stuff that we want to get rid of is still sitting there in a pile. It could be in our closet, could be in our garage, wherever it is. If it's sitting there for too long, we just aren't getting that satisfaction. The other thing that can happen, and let me tell you, this has happened to me, is other people in your house, even though you have all decided that you're going to get rid of these items, will start going through the items. And this is something my kids have done, which is all of a sudden they're looking through the items, or they're just grabbing things and moving them, and then they're in the wrong location. They might actually be pushed back into the things that we're keeping. So I just say get rid of the stuff as soon as you can. What I normally do is once I have enough items, so not a whole ton of stuff where I've had to hold on to it for a really long time, but once I've gone through my decluttering session, I will gather all those items up and I will usually put them into a bag or a box, and I'll put them in my car. So that way, whenever I'm out driving, I can just make sure I swing by the donation location of choice and drop those items off. And by putting them in my car, I'm almost forcing myself to drop them off, because now it's an inconvenience for me to go grocery shopping or do all the other things I might need my trunk for. So I just am forced to actually get rid of the items. Number 3 is organizing before or during the decluttering process. The one thing that's kind of hard to do, especially if you're kind of like me where you want things organized all the time, and it kind of stresses me out to have a bunch of stuff everywhere unorganized. I really do get stressed out by that. Anyway, is try not to organize before you actually declutter that certain area. I know to a degree we have to keep things sorted and as organized as possible, but if we go out and spend a whole bunch of time, energy, and money on bins and boxes and things to get our closets organized, the problem with that is if we're going to now go and declutter that closet, it can actually waste time and money if you organize too soon before you've actually fully decluttered an area. Mistake number 4 is starting with sentimental items or things that might mean a lot to you or a family member, and then trying to go through those items and putting too much pressure on yourself to get rid of things that maybe you're just not ready to make the decision on. So I know I've shared this story before of decluttering my wedding bouquet, but it's kind of funny because I took such a long time to finally let that go, even though I didn't really want it on my wall or in my closet or anywhere I was putting it. I just didn't really want it. But for some reason, it was just sentimental at the time and I could not bring myself to get rid of it. So even though I know a lot of people would say, you should have decluttered that in the first round of decluttering, sometimes it just takes a little bit longer to actually get rid of those sentimental items that you don't really want anymore, but you're holding on to because of emotional attachment or for some reason that you weren't able to actually let them go yet. Just set those sentimental items aside until you have the mental energy to deal with those and really think about if you are going to want those in the future. It can take time, so it's best just to set those aside and declutter everything else in your home that doesn't have as much meaning to begin with. While trying to avoid mistakes with decluttering and other things, I've also been trying to get more organized with my Google Calendar, and I would like to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives. They have topics ranging from illustration, graphic design, photography, and so much more. With Chaos to Calm Google Workshop Calendar for Creatives, I am learning how to get organized with my Google Calendar. So not only am I going to be clutter-free in my home, hopefully, and more organized, I can also be organized with all of my digital things as well. Skillshare classes are taught by industry experts and they're excited to share their journey, ranging from beginner to advanced. Skillshare can help you take your career, skills, hobbies, passions, or side hustles to the next level. With a learn by doing approach, you can share with the community. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today. Ready for that common mistake that I mentioned that a lot of people make, which is sunk cost. So that means that you purchase something for kind of a lot of money, whatever that means to you, and now you don't want that item anymore, but you feel like you are wasting money because you've already spent the money on that item, and I should just force myself to like that item or keep it in my house because I spent really hard-earned money on that item. And this is where a lot of us can go wrong because now we're cluttering up our house. We're keeping these things we don't use, we don't like, we don't need, all because we spent money on it. And I know that that is so hard to wrap our heads around, but sometimes, you know, we have the best intentions, we buy something, we think we're gonna use it, and then we just don't need it. And in my opinion, it's better to let that item go rather than be stressed by it, having it take up space in our homes, but really not using it and not needing it. The money's already been spent, and keeping that item is not going to bring your money back. It's probably just going to annoy you every time you look at that item. Number 6 on my list is decluttering other people's stuff, and I have a funny story that goes with this one, but essentially start with decluttering your own things. That's what I did. I have always tried to make sure not to declutter other people's stuff, although it can be hard, and we always think that, oh, his stuff or their stuff is the problem. It's not my stuff, it's the other person's stuff. So I really tried to stick with my own things first and then tried to get my husband into the decluttering spirit. When he saw me cleaning all these things out, he really did get on board, and then we actually went through his clothing together. I think I had 2 videos on decluttering my husband's clothes with him. So yeah, I think just start with your own things first. Try not to start with other people's stuff, although I know it may be hard. My funny story is when my mom and I were decluttering our garage, I had a ton of comments saying that I shouldn't be decluttering my husband's tool chest. But the funny thing about that is the tool chest was mine, and the tools that I were decluttering were actually inherited from my grandfather to me. So I thought that was so funny because they saw a tool chest and they saw tools and they just assumed that that was all my husband's stuff. But I think that, you know, of course in videos people jump to conclusions, and anytime you've seen a video here on my channel where I've said, oh, this is Grant's thing, I think we're gonna get rid of this, I have always asked him first if he needs it anymore before I decluttered it. So sometimes you just don't see that in the video, but I thought that was such a funny thing because I received so many comments yelling at me not to declutter my husband's tools. Number 7 on the list is not maintaining your clutter-free environment. So you've gone to all this trouble to declutter your home, and I think one of the decluttering mistakes is we just stop. We declutter the kitchen, we declutter the closet, and then we say to ourselves, that's it. I've gone through it, I'm done, and that's all good. But the problem is usually we bring in more things over time, and we might also realize that our tastes have changed, our hobbies have changed. Just we change and evolve as people. So we might find that we're not actually using certain things, and therefore it's good to maintain a decluttering schedule, which could be just once a month, it could be every 6 months, but just going through your home again, peeking in each closet and making sure that you still want to keep all those items and that you aren't actually gathering more clutter and just reversing the whole process that you had just worked so hard to achieve. Number 8 on my list is procrastination, and I feel I am the queen of procrastinating. I still get a lot done, but it can be hard sometimes to get motivated to do certain chores or certain things that we just don't feel up to. So in this case, I like to say one item leaving my home is better than nothing. So if you can just pick one thing a day, a week, or even a month to declutter from your home, you're still making progress. No matter how slow that is, you are making progress. So I think a lot of the time when we procrastinate, it's because we're imagining we are having to declutter our whole entire house, which can be super stressful and add a lot of anxiety. So I think if we can just 1 or 2 things, just find them as you see them, grab them, put them in the box to go, and you will still be making progress. Mistake number 9 is not setting any limits. And this kind of goes along the same way of you have to keep decluttering, you have to maintain decluttering, but setting limits for me has really changed everything. So for instance, when it comes to our Christmas decorations, I have 2 somewhat large boxes, and that's it. I've told myself if I cannot fit all of the Christmas decor in those 2 boxes, I am going to either declutter stuff or just never shop anymore. What's interesting is once I grabbed my Christmas bins down from the cupboard, opened them up, I was so happy to see all that old sentimental decor. I started putting it up around my house. I loved the way it looked, and I didn't feel as if I needed to go out and add anything. Sometimes we just would add things and it would get out of control. By setting a limit of the 2 bins, I've literally forced myself to not shop, or I would have had to declutter one of those things that I really love. Number 10 is to not rush the process, and there are no rules when it comes to decluttering. So I know there are all kinds of methods to declutter and tips and tricks and all that, but in all honesty, there really aren't any rules. Like, I'm calling all of these mistakes, but if you want to do all these things, go ahead. There are no rules. To me, these felt like mistakes that I had made over the last few years and learned along the way. And it's been helpful for me to not do some of these things. But I have to say, when it comes to decluttering, there are no rules. You do not have to sort first. You do not have to have a special box that's labeled decluttering. You could literally put everything in a trash bag and drop it off at the secondhand store. You could just throw everything away if you want to. I don't recommend that, but I mean, there just aren't any rules. And I think it's kind of funny when, I get a comment or something that's telling me that I'm doing something wrong, because it's all made up. You can do whatever you want, and you can take all the time in the world. If you want to declutter one small area and then take 3 months off from decluttering and then come back and declutter another small area. When I declutter with my mom, we declutter a closet and she gets rid of some things, and then 6 months later she comes back and she'll declutter the same closet again. She'll find more things. So don't feel like you have to rush this. There truly are no rules when it comes to decluttering. Do what makes you feel best and what makes you happiest. I feel the decluttering process should be somewhat joyful and exciting, and in the end you should have a really beautiful home that is functioning for you, organized and simplified, and it's all due to your hard work from going through and finding those items that you no longer need. Leave me a comment and let me know any decluttering mistakes you've made along your journey. If you're new here, you can hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much for being here, and you can click right here to continue watching videos. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.